Help me understand, what is thinking?
Look, going back to my days when I first started programming and this idea that I was thinking with a machine, I had to start thinking about thinking itself. Because what is this thing I'm doing? And to be able to get a computer to think was really programming. So this line by line, like really structured thinking process was my first sort of exposure to this idea of, hang on a minute. So I think I create this program and I structure it in such a way that I can get a computer to solve problems. So this started giving me a clue to what is thinking. I've been thinking about thinking and how we think. Our brains work very differently to, especially linear computer programming, but it gave me the start to be able to build a mental model around this. So to me, as I looked at systems of the systems, understanding how we solve, problems, creativity, all of these things, I realized that we could take some of the, the meta models from computing and be able to use it as a model to understand thinking itself.
And you mentioned one of those words that's going to come up quite a bit, which is systems. And related to systems are processes. And this, when you broke this down, the first time you walked me through thinking as a process, that it's simply input, process, output. What do our brains do? The most complex things in the known universe, at least that we know of. And you said it's simple. Thinking is a process. It's input, process, and output. So there's a lot to this, Kez. Let's unbox this a little bit.
So, look, as I started studying this more and more, to be able to look at it and get it down to the simpler model, right? Input, process, output. That seems far too simplistic for what we do. But let me break this down and explain this in a way which you might get at what got me excited about this, which is if you understand what it is to become really good at something. So what is it to become really good at Go? Let's go to Lisa Doll, right? Here's somebody who spent his life learning, how to play Go, how to improve at the game. So, really start being able to chunk. And there's a lot of different ideas behind this, but he started being able to get to a high level skill. What did he have to do that? At some level, he had to be exposed through input to this game. He had to think about it and learn some of the standard moves and be able to output good moves. So this idea of how he trained his brain to become good at Go, I actually use the analogy of training neural networks. So if you put neural networks in the middle of this, how you train a neural network or a deep learning network is to be able to give it what we call input and output pairs. This is supervised learning, but this idea. So when I was training it to learn how to find, the rules of chess and become good at chess, I didn't teach it the rules. I gave it good games. I gave it, move by move. I gave, here's the input, what the board looked like. Here's where the next move was. Here's the output of a good move from a grandmaster. And it would train the neural network in the middle. So it'll change all the weights, change all the connections to be able to learn how to do that. And you do that move after move after move. I had to train it how to move a pawn, how to move a rook, all of these different pieces. So you train it up to eventually that it sees a board, it can use that same network to be able to find a pattern, go, oh, this is actually a good move. So if you think about that from the perspective of everything we do, so reading is also a process. It's a mental skill that we learn, but it provides us input into our brains. Processing, how do we process that information, the things that we're reading? This is, synthesizing or decision making or creativity. All of these things are sort of processes which is happening inside our heads. And then the output is like, how do we write? How do we speak? We all know that at some level, it isn't just a output. It isn't just like a printer coming out. Thinking, writing, speaking changes how we think about something. And this is the dynamic nature of our brains. But to be able to look at this input, process, output, how do we train our brains to become really good? And not only one skill, but the hundreds, thousands of skills that we all have built, and never mind all the underlying skills which sit behind those the sort of the mental processes. We actually, to get to general intelligence, one of the things you'll find is we build better and better mental models about the world, because we use this input, process, output to actually anticipate and simulate world situations. When we come across them, we know what to do faster than if we'd been trained it step by step. We just unconsciously know what to do. And this is the concept of using this mental model to understand what thinking is.
So thinking is a process, all of these mental skills, all of which can be learned and improved. And two things that you've really helped me understand is when in doubt, over-index on input. If you don't know what to do, put more ideas in your head. And then when it comes to output, I love that quote. Now I can't remember who said it off the top of my head, but that notion that how do I know what I think until I see what I say with those outputs?